What it do, what it do, what it do. I go by the name of BRWE, representing that self-made hustle TV, where the hustle has to be in you, not on you. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe, man. You don't wanna step to this. It's the G-Funk era, funk out the gangsta twist, the gangsta twist. If you smoke like I smoke, then you pop like every day, like every day. And if your ass is a buzz, your ass is a
blood in my eyes and my palms with it. If you know me, you know I'm war with it. You want me dead and get the chance, better keep your hands steady. I don't take like the threats, all of my firearms heavy. So you can tell the advocates to stay the fuck out my business. TBG, this my business. Reporters think they know it all like they the eyewitness. I was in jail when he got smashed, fuck I'm tired in it. Can't see me lined up by your box, so I just vibe in it. If you know like I know, you don't wanna fuck with this. With a 50 round drum with a switch that'll make a gangster twist. And if you smoke like I smoke, then the ops always be pissed. And if you ever take a shot at a nigga like me, then you bet not miss. And if you know it like I know, you don't wanna fuck with this. Clap with a 50 round drum with a switch that'll make a gangster twist. And if you smoke like I smoke, then your ops always be pissed. My dead homies want you dead, why would I let them down? Ever since they left, I got some pain that I can't let go. I don't want a wife, I said for love and put my Draco on a pedestal. Gotta watch the niggas look inside. I got a lot of beef, but don't move deep, I'm with like five guys. I ain't with the rah-rah, I come with a man's like Lady Gaga. One deep in this whip, this rocket turn into a drive-by. Know like I know, you don't wanna fuck with this. Lock with a 50 round drum with a switch and I make a gangster twist. And if you smoke like I smoke, then your ops always be pissed. And if you ever take a shot at a nigga like me, then you bet not miss. And if you know it like I know, you don't wanna fuck with this. Lock with a 50 round drum with a switch and I make a gangster twist. And if you smoke like I smoke, then your ops always be pissed. And if you ever take a shot at a nigga like me, then you bet not miss. And if you ever take a shot at a nigga like me, then you bet not miss. Salute, man. Friday, man. It is Saturday, ain't it? It's payday. See, my days are confused. I just got out of work, so it was Friday when I went. Got off, it's Saturday. Hey, shout out to everybody. Shout out to all the new subs. Shout out to it being payday, man. Shout out to the people that's going to do what they supposed to do with their good money, pay them bills and pay them rent. Shout out to y'all, man. Y'all were definitely winning, man. But we gonna get into this kid, cause you know I've been fucking with the AI a little bit and shit. So we gonna go into Kid Cudi testimony in the AI version of it. So let me get this up off the screen real fast. Yeah, we're gonna go here real fast. And we're gonna fuck around and crank this bitch up.
The government calls Scott Cudi.
Welcome. Just come right up here.
Can I ask you to please give the court your first and last name and spell your first and last name?
Scott Mescudi. SCOTTMESCUDI.
Ms. Johnson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Cudi.
Hi.
What do you do for work?
I'm an actor and musician.
Are you known by any other names?
Kid Cudi.
Ms. Foster, could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A401? Mr. Cudi, do you recognize who's depicted in Government Exhibit 2A401?
Yes.
Who is that?
Cassie Ventura.
Do you know Miss Ventura?
Yes.
How do you know Miss Ventura?
We were friends and we dated briefly.
How did you first meet Miss Ventura?
Just at an event in New York years ago, around like 2008.
Did you ever collaborate professionally with Miss Ventura?
Yeah, we worked on some music together.
You also mentioned you dated briefly. Approximately when did you date Miss Ventura?
2011.
You can take that down now, Miss Foster. Mr. Mascati, who else, if you know, was Miss Ventura involved romantically with around the same time you were dating her in 2011?
Sean Combs.
Could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A101? Mr. Mascati, do you recognize who's depicted in Government Exhibit 2A101?
Yes.
Who's that?
Sean Combs.
Is that the same Sean Combs who was romantically involved with Miss Ventura?
Yes.
You can take that down now. Mr. Mascati, when you were first dating Miss Ventura, what, if anything, did you know about the status of her relationship with Mr. Combs?
When we first started dating, you mean?
Yes, when you first started dating.
That she and Sean Combs had some problems and they weren't dating anymore.
Did your understanding of the nature of their relationship ever change?
Did the what now?
Did your understanding of the status of their relationship ever change?
After she told me?
Yes.
No, not that I knew of.
Miss Foster, can you also please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 2A406? Do you recognize Mr. Mascati, who is depicted in this exhibit?
Yes.
Who is this?
Capricorn.
How do you know Capricorn?
She was a friend of Cassie's.
I want to direct your attention to December of 2011. Did there come a time when law enforcement responded to your home in December of 2011?
Yes.
Why did law enforcement respond in December 2011?
Because I had a break-in.
I'd like to start at the beginning of the day of the break-in. How did that day start?
Well, I got a call from Cassie around 5:30, 6 a.m., and she told me that Sean Combs had found out about us. I was really confused, but she asked me to pick her up. She sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared, so I went to go pick her up, and yeah.
A few follow-up questions for you. When Miss Ventura said that Mr. Combs had found out about us, as you said, what was your understanding of what Miss Ventura was saying?
Objection. Overruled.
You can answer.
Repeat the question?
Sure. You testified that Miss Ventura told you Mr. Combs found out about us. What was your understanding of what Mr. Combs had found out?
That me and her were dating.
And you also testified that you were confused when you heard that?
Yes.
Why were you confused?
Because I didn't think she was still dealing with him.
And you mentioned that you went to pick her up, is that right?
Yes.
Why did you pick her up?
She wanted me to come pick her up. And she was also worried that he would come to my house because he asked for my address and she gave it to him.
When you picked her up, could you please describe for the jury Miss Ventura's demeanor?
Very stressed, nervous, just scared. Didn't know what Sean Combs would do.
Prior to the phone call you received that you just testified about, had you and Miss Ventura previously discussed the nature of her relationship with Mr. Combs?
Yeah, about like if they were still hanging out or if she had seen him or just meeting in general.
Let me be a little more specific. What, if anything, had Miss Ventura previously told you about Mr. Combs being physical with her?
That he was abusive.
Same objection, Your Honor.
It's sustained.
Mr. Mascati, after you picked up Miss Ventura, where did you go?
I took her to the Sunset Marquis.
What's the Sunset Marquis?
It's a hotel in Los Angeles.
Why did you go to the Sunset Marquis after you picked up Miss Ventura?
I used to frequent the Sunset Marquis and I just thought it was safe and just wanted to put her somewhere where she was off the radar.
When you say safe, what do you mean by that?
Just safe, away from him.
When you and Miss Ventura were at the Sunset Marquis, who else, if anyone, did you speak to while you were at the hotel?
Capricorn.
So before we talk about the substance of that communication, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Had you spoken to Capricorn before this morning?
Yes.
How often had you spoken to Capricorn on previous occasions?
Quite often. She hung out with me and Cassie a lot.
On the morning when you were at the Sunset Marquis, how did you speak to Capricorn?
On speakerphone.
Who else was present, if anyone?
Cassie.
And can you describe how Capricorn's voice sounded on the phone call that you and Miss Ventura had with her at the Sunset Marquis?
She was very scared. Sounded like she was on the verge of tears.
What, if anything, did Capricorn say to you and Miss Ventura on that phone call about what was happening at the moment for her?
Objection, Your Honor.
That's overruled.
You can answer.
That Sean Combs and an affiliate were in my house and she was in a car. She was forced to go along with them over there.
And what, if anything, did Miss Capricorn say about where she was at that moment?
She was in a car outside my house.
Well, y'all don't know, there are no cameras allowed, no cell phones, no recordings, no nothing devices or nothing allowed in the courtroom. So with the law and crime station, they created an AI version of it just off the court transcripts. So everything that he's saying, they not add no sauce to it. This is what's in the court's transcript, and they just made like a AI version of it.
I was waiting for them.
And what, if anything, did Capricorn say about where Mr. Combs was at the moment?
Ask and answer. Sorry, objection.
Overruled.
In my house.
After you spoke to Capricorn, what did you do next?
I got in my car and went to my house.
Did anyone go with you when you went to your house after that phone call?
No.
Ms. Foster, can you please pull up for identification for the court, the witness, and the parties only, Government Exhibit 8C102? Mr. Mezcudi, do you recognize what's depicted in this exhibit?
Yes.
What is it?
It's the front door of my old house.
And is this the house you drove to after receiving the phone call from Ms. Clark?
Yes.
The government offers Government Exhibit 8C102.
No opposition.
8C102 will be admitted.
Will you please publish to the jury, Ms. Foster? Mr. Mezcudi, what was the address where you were living at the time?
8925 Hollywood Hills Road.
And you mentioned that this was just so I'm clear, you mentioned that this door we see in a photograph, is this the front gate door or is this the door to the residence?
This is the front gate door.
Is there an additional door to the residence?
Yes.
You can take that down now, Ms. Foster. How would you describe the neighborhood that 8925 Hollywood Hills Road is located in?
Quiet, family-oriented.
And approximately how long was the drive from the Sunset Marquis Hotel to your home at 8925 Hollywood Hills Road?
Maybe like 12, 15 minutes.
Movies and games, salute. Make sure y'all double tap the screen for me, man. Hit the like button and like, share, and subscribe.
And in December 2011, what kind of car did you drive?
A Porsche 911 Cabriolet.
Was that the car you were driving that evening?
Yes.
While you were on that drive from the hotel to your home, what, if anything, did you do?
I called Sean Combs.
How did you have Sean Combs' phone number?
I just had it from years ago.
Did Mr. Combs pick up your call?
Yes.
Can you describe the conversation that you had with Mr. Combs on the drive to your home?
Yeah, I'm going to be very candid. I said, "You in my house?" And he was like, "What's up?" I was like, "Are you in my house?" And he said, "I just want to talk to you." I was like, "I'm on my way over there right now." He was like, "I'm here."
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last bit. After you said, "I want to talk to you," what did Mr. Combs respond with?
No, he said he wants to talk to me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I said, "I'm on my way over to my house right now." And he's like, "I'm over here waiting for you."
When Mr. Combs said, "I'm over here waiting for you," what was your understanding of where Mr. Combs was located?
At my house.
What was Mr. Combs' tone of voice during that phone call?
Calm.
When you arrived at your house, focusing first on the outside of your house, what did the outside look like?
Pretty normal.
Were there any security cameras at your residence at that time?
Yes.
Were those security cameras working that evening?
They weren't. I thought they were working, but they weren't.
You find out later that they weren't working?
Yeah.
Where were the security cameras positioned on the exterior of your house?
To the side, like somebody moved it out the way.
When you say someone moved it out of the way, can you explain what you mean by that?
Like the camera was angled down at the door originally, and it was moved to an opposite angle.
And when did you discover the camera had been moved to a different angle?
Once I got to the house.
And was the camera at a different angle earlier, before the break-in?
Yes.
Had you moved the security cameras at all?
No.
I want to focus now on the inside of your home. When you went inside, was anyone inside your home?
No.
What did you see inside your home?
Some gifts that I bought for my family were open. Some stuff I got from Chanel, and then my dog was locked up in my bathroom.
So taking those one at a time, where were the gifts that were opened?
On the kitchen counter.
What type of gifts were those?
I can't remember exactly what specifically, but it was stuff from Chanel.
And you mentioned that your dog was locked up in the bathroom, is that right?
Yes.
How did you typically allow your dog to stay in your home when you weren't present?
I just let him roam.
Had you shut the door to the bathroom before you left?
No.
Before the break-in, how long had you had your dog?
I think by this time, maybe 3 years.
And I want to focus on the immediate aftermath of the break-in, right after. What, if any, changes in behavior did you notice in your dog after the break-in?
Very jittery and kind of on edge all the time.
I want to focus on what you did next. After you got to your home, what did you do after that?
I got in the car and that's when I called Sean Combs.
So you got back to your car after you went to your home?
Yeah.
Were you still alone in your car?
Yeah.
And you mentioned you called Mr. Combs again?
Yeah.
Why did you call Mr. Combs again?
Because I was looking for him.
Why were you looking for him?
Because I wanted to confront him. I wanted to fight him, you know?
Did you call Mr. Combs?
Yeah.
Did he answer?
Yes.
Can you describe that conversation for the jury?
I can't remember my exact words, but I was kind of like asking him where he was. And he was like, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. So at that point, I hung up and I thought to myself, I was like, okay, you're angry.
Objection.
Grounds.
Non-responsive.
That's overruled.
Okay, you're angry. Just think about this, you know, like, and I just thought, like, I don't know who he has with him. I don't know what his intentions are.
Objection.
Why don't we get a fresh question?
That's fine. Mr. Mezcudi, what did you do after that phone call with Sean Combs?
I thought about, you know, the reality of the situation, not knowing what I was walking myself into, so I decided to call the police.
Can you describe Mr. Combs' tone of voice when you spoke to him on the phone while you were in your car?
Calm.
Where did you go after you called the police?
I went back to my house.
When you returned home, was anyone there?
Yes.
Who was there?
The police.
Did you speak to the police?
Yes.
Did you make a report about the break-in?
Yes.
Did you see Miss Ventura later that day?
Yes.
What was her demeanor like when you saw her later?
Stressed.
You mentioned this was in December 2011, is that right?
Yes.
Where did you spend the Christmas holiday in December 2011?
With Cassie's family in Connecticut.
Where did you stay in Connecticut when you were there for the holidays?
At her family's house.
Can you generally describe Miss Ventura's demeanor when you were in Connecticut for the holidays with her family?
I think being around her family really did a lot for her at that time. She really needed it.
While you were away in Connecticut, did you have any additional communications with Mr. Combs?
Yes, he had hit me a couple of times.
When you say he hate you, what do you mean by that?
He texted me.
Did he text you? You said a couple of times. How frequently did Mr. Combs text you?
It wasn't every day. It kind of stopped at some point when I responded to him and told him I didn't want to talk. His text messages were always along the lines of him wanting to speak. Just get to the bottom of it.
When you say you got to the bottom of it, what are you talking about?
Just figure out what's going on, I guess. He was in the dark about things and wanted to talk. But at that point, you know, post-break-in, I didn't want to talk to him.
Did you respond to Mr. Combs' texts?
Yeah, I told him, you know, specifically told him, you broke into my house. You mess with my dog. Like, I don't want to talk to you.
When did you leave Connecticut?
A little.
Bro, the nigga broke in the nigga house and played with the nigga dog and everything, dog. That nigga Diddy is a gangster, bro. This nigga is a sick gangster, man.
Little bit before New Year's.
By January of 2012, after New Year's, what was the status of your relationship with Ms. Ventura?
We weren't really hanging out,
Why was that?
I guess.
Objection.
Can you rephrase the question?
Sure. You said you weren't really hanging out with Ms. Ventura?
No.
Did the relationship end?
Yeah.
Directing your attention to January of 2012, did there come a time when you learned your car had caught fire?
Yes.
How did you learn that your car had caught fire?
My dog's babysitter called me in the morning.
Approximately what time did you receive that phone call?
6:30, 7 a.m.
What was your understanding of where your dog's babysitter was located when she called you?
at my house.
Was it your understanding that your
This is an AI generated like court thing, but everything that they're saying is off the transcript. It's like they put the transcript into the AI settings, and then I guess this is what came out of it.
your dog's babysitter was telling you what was happening in real time?
Yes.
And what did your dog's babysitter say to you about what she saw?
She told me my car was on fire.
Was anyone else present at your house at the time?
No.
Where were you?
I was at my ex-girlfriend's sister's house.
Approximately how far away from your house were you?
Like 45 minutes or something like that.
Where was your car at the time your babysitter called?
In the driveway.
Was it in the driveway of the same home at 8925 Hollywood Hills Road?
Yes.
After you received this phone call from your dog's babysitter, what did you do?
I immediately went to my house.
Miss Foster, can we please pull up for identification for the court, the witness, and the parties, government exhibits 3F101 and 3F102? I'm going to show you 6 total pictures, Mr. Mascati. Mm-hmm. Do you recognize what's depicted in those pictures?
Yeah,
What is it?
my Porsche.
Ms. Foster, can you please pull up government exhibits 3F103 and 3F104? Do you recognize what's depicted in these photos, Mr. Mascati?
Yes,
What is it?
the damage from a Molotov cocktail in my Porsche.
Is that your car?
Huh?
This is your car.
Yes.
Ms. Foster, can you now please pull up for identification government exhibits 3F105 and 3F108? Mr. Mascati, do you recognize what's depicted in those photographs?
Yes.
Is that your car?
Yes.
The government offers government exhibits 3F101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 108.
No opposition, Your Honor.
Those exhibits will be admitted.
Can you publish those exhibits to the jury? Mr. Mascati, when did you receive these photos?
While I was on my way to my house,
Who sent these photos to you?
my friend Chip.
Who's Chip?
He's a good friend and collaborator.
Why did Chip send you photographs of your car?
He was closer to my house and I wanted to see the damage that had been done.
Did you ask Chip to go take photos for you?
Yes.
So I want to focus on these 2 photographs. First, on the one on the left. Can you describe what's depicted in the photograph on the left?
It looks like the top of my Porsche was cut open and that's where they inserted the Molotov cocktail.
And the photograph on the right. From what angle is that photograph taken?
It looks like that's from the passenger side looking up the roof.
On the right-hand side of the photograph, what is the hole? Is that the same hole in the roof you can see on the photograph on the left, 3F101?
Yes.
Can you take these down, Ms. Foster, and pull up 3F103 and 3F105 side by side? Mr. Mascati, starting with the one on the left, can you please describe what we are seeing in government exhibit 3F103?
That's the door to the driver's side, smoke damage.
Then what is depicted in the photograph on the right?
That's the hole in my roof.
Can you take those down, Ms. Foster, and pull up government exhibit 3F104 and 3F108? What's depicted in these 2 images?
The damage to the driver's side.
You mentioned a Molotov cocktail earlier.
Yeah.
What's a Molotov cocktail, to your understanding?
It's, would you say, explosive or something like that? I guess it's a bottle with some type of like inflammatory liquid inside and a cloth that you light on fire and it ignites.
Did you eventually get to your home on the day of the car fire?
Hey, this nigga Diddy took it back to the old school. That nigga could have easily went and got the chopper and shot that bitch up. You know what I'm saying? Went and got the motherfucking AR and went and got been very disruptive. That nigga took it back to the old school, nigga, to the mob days, nigga, cocktail bomb. I don't know what he was thinking with that, fool.
Yeah.
What did you see when you arrived home?
Just the damage. I saw the Molotov cocktail, yeah.
Are these photographs that we just looked at similar to what you saw when you arrived home?
Yeah.
When you say, I saw the Molotov cocktail, what did you see?
The bottle, and it was kind of just burnt up.
Was any law enforcement present when you arrived here to your home?
Yes.
Did you speak to law enforcement that day?
Yes.
Did you make a report?
Yes.
With respect to your car, was your car able to be repaired after the fire?
No.
And when you said you saw the bottle for the Molotov cocktail when you returned home, where was that bottle?
On the ground.
Was it on the ground inside or outside of your vehicle?
Outside of the vehicle.
Was it near the vehicle?
Huh?
Where was it in relation to the vehicle?
It was near the vehicle.
Published evidence.
What was your understanding of where the Molotov cocktail was found by law
I
enforcement?
don't know, man.
In the driver's seat.
I think you mentioned this,
Nah.
but was
This shit, they hide a lot of shit. They protecting people. They objecting on the big questions that we want to know the answers to. They, it's crazy. Like, we don't know who gonna testify. You know what I'm saying? We don't know.
was your car able to be repaired?
No.
What was your reaction to your car being set on fire?
What the
Objection.
That's overruled. Ms. Johnson, we're going to take a 5-minute break whenever you're ready in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah,
When you
that's what I'm saying. They hiding a lot of shit. Nobody's important. I'm telling y'all, they hiding a lot of shit we don't have access to. Like, okay, the shit with Lil Durk. Nigga, we got access to everything that Lil Durk got on the board. I swear to God. It's like they want to make sure they bury him. But it's like something just weird about this shit where they hiding a lot of the evidence, fool. They pulling it out, but they not letting us see it. But then again, it's federal too. And these are good lawyers. This $10 million worth of lawyers, you know?
Find a good landing place.
I'm about to move on to a different topic, so I think this may be a good landing place.
Very good. Members of the jury, we are going to take a short recess and we will be back in 10 minutes. So around 11:22 or thereabouts. All rise. Ms. Johnson, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Mascotti, before we took the break, we were talking about the day your car was set on fire. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Just 2 additional questions about that day. Ms. Foster, could you please pull up what's in evidence as Government Exhibit 3F105? Mr. Mascotti, was the damage depicted in Government Exhibit 3F105 present on your vehicle before you got the call from the dog sitter you described earlier?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'll strike the question.
What?
The last time you saw your car prior to the phone call you got from the dog sitter, did your car look like this?
No.
What was your understanding of whether this was accidental?
Why did she ask the question like that? See, them hoes be trying to trick the fuck out of you and make you say some dumb shit. That's why your best bet, if you don't understand, man, you better ask them hoes, what the fuck do you mean? Like, for real?
Or intentional?
It was intentional.
Ms. Foster, can you please pull up Government Exhibit 3F103? Mr. Mascotti, did the door of your car look like this before you got the call from your dog sitter that there was a fire in your car?
No.
Was it your understanding that this damage was accidental or intentional?
Intentional.
You can take that down now, Ms. Foster. When was the last time you saw Ms. Ventura?
2012.
Where did you see her?
At the Soho House.
When did you see Ms. Ventura at the Soho House relative to the day your car was on fire?
Couple of days later.
Why were you at the Soho House?
I reached out to Sean Combs after my car had caught fire and, finally told him that we needed to meet up to talk, He had been wanting to talk to me. So after the fire, I was like, this is getting out of hand.
Nigga, look at how that nigga, and you know what's crazy about this, dog? Gene Deal said that nigga hair really white like that. He said he known Puppy for so many years. He said he never seen his hair white like this. He said never.
I need to talk to him.
Why was it Mr. Combs you reached out to after the fire?
Because I knew he had something to do with it.
Your Honor, can we have a sidebar?
Is there an objection?
Objection.
Objection is sustained. The jury should disregard the witness's last answer. Ms. Johnson, you may ask your next question.
Mr. Mascotti, who, if anyone, helped arrange the meeting at the Soho House?
This man named D-Rock and my manager, Dennis Cummings.
Who is D-Rock, if you know?
I don't know exactly what he does for Mr. Combs, but I guess he was like security or somebody.
Do you have an understanding that he worked for Mr. Combs?
Yes.
Where at Soho House was the meeting held?
It was hell. The rooms are not there anymore, but they used to have meeting rooms on the first floor.
In which city was the meeting held?
Hollywood.
In Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Can you describe what happened when you arrived at the Soho House?
Yeah, I walked in and I met D-Rock. He was escorting me into the room, and then I got to the room. It was one wall, was all window, and Sean Combs was standing there staring out the window with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was just me and him.
Exactly what was said. All they did was put the court transcript through the AI machine and generated the way the people look. That's all they did, bro. Everything, you can't do that. You can't be on a news station and forge some words, some court documents or you can't do that. That's illegal. You know what I'm saying? So whoever idea this is $1 million brilliant ass idea because there's no cell phones, no cameras, no recording devices in the courtroom at all. So how about you just take the court transcript and throw it into the AI player and let him generate, what they gonna say.
In the room, no security, nobody.
Was Ms. Ventura present when you initially arrived at the meeting?
No.
What happened when it was just you and Mr. Combs in the room at the Soho House?
We discussed, pretty much the whole story about how me and Cassie first started to date, to what it was, to how it ended. And his whole point was, we were homies, that was my girl. I let him know that, she told me they were broken up. And I took her word for it. Yeah.
What was Mr. Combs' demeanor during this meeting?
Very calm. He kept offering me water. He offered me water twice.
What was your reaction to his demeanor?
It was very off-putting. It was weird that he was so calm.
You mentioned that Miss Ventura wasn't present when you first arrived.
No.
Did that change?
Yes, she eventually came.
And how did you react when Miss Ventura arrived?
I was upset to find out that she had kind of went back to him.
What did Miss Ventura do when she arrived?
She pretty much kind of explained that we fell in love and things just happened.
You seen how that nigga Diddy eyes was moving and shit? That shit was crazy.
You know?
I believe you testified to this earlier, but how soon was the meeting at the Soho House in relation to the day your car was on fire?
I think it was like the next day.
At the same time, did you have conflicts with anyone else?
No.
Can you describe how the meeting with Mr. Combs ended at the Soho House?
Yeah, we stood up, shook hands, and as I was shaking his hand, I said, "What are we going to do about my car?" I made sure to ask him right when our hands were clasped together, where he couldn't run away, and I could look him square in his eyes. And he looked right back at me, very cold stare, and said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And I said, "Okay." I took my hand from his, and he said, "Wait, I thought we were cool. Is there a problem?" I was like, "You said you didn't burn my car, right? You said that's your word." He said, "Yeah." I was like, "That's it."
When Mr. Combs looked at you and said, "I don't know what you were talking about," when you asked about...
But Gene Deal said that Kid Cudi didn't want. This what Gene Deal said in the interview yesterday. He said that Diddy can fight good. That's what he said. He said Diddy got them squabbles. So he said that Kid Cudi really didn't want a part of Diddy then. He said when he was working out and he was on that cocaine. You know, on that cocaine, nigga probably ain't gonna feel shit. He gonna be numb. Diddy probably gonna run through Kid Cudi ass. Yeah.
But your car, what was his tone of voice?
Very calm.
After this meeting, were there any other break-ins at your home?
No.
And after this meeting, was your car ever set on fire again?
No.
Have you seen Mr. Combs since that Soho House meeting?
Yes.
Approximately when did you see Mr. Combs?
A couple of years later at the Soho House again.
Can you describe what happened when you saw him at the Soho House a few years later?
Yeah, he was with his daughter and he pulled me to the side and basically apologized for everything. He said, and I quote, "Man, I just want to apologize for everything and all that."
Between the break-in and the car fire and Mr. Combs' apology a few years later, did you have any other conflicts with Mr. Combs in that interim time period?
No. After I got the apology, I kind of found peace with it because I thought, that was the last thing I was expecting to get from him.
Your Honor, may I have one moment?
You may.
No further questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
So that was that, man. So that was that. They said that he said that he didn't snitch on Diddy. He just said, "Nigga, you said you didn't burn my car, so I'm gonna agree with what you said." You know? Hey, there's some shit going on this bitch. Whoa. Whoa.
The room went silent. There was no need to ask who her was. Those who had followed the trial closely knew exactly. The courtroom was already tense when the door opened and Kelly Clarkson walked in. There was no announcement, no fanfare, just a collective gasp as one of America's most beloved voices stepped quietly into a space now known for chaos, scandal, and revelation. She didn't wear designer shades or hide behind lawyers. She didn't wave to the press. She just walked, slowly and with purpose, to the witness stand. No one had seen this coming. For days, rumors had swirled that other celebrities might be called to testify in Diddy's trial. But Kelly Clarkson, the woman known for her powerhouse vocals and down-to-earth charm, she was the last person anyone expected to be involved. Yet there she was, placing her hand on the Bible, swearing to tell the truth under oath in a courtroom that had already seen Katy Perry ignite a chain reaction of justice. Kelly took a moment before she spoke.
If I'm not mistaken, ain't Kelly Clarkson the American Idol winner or something? Damn, this nigga Diddy had a hold on everything, didn't he? He had his hands up in a little bit of this, a little bit of
Her eyes
that.
scanned the room, not looking for sympathy, but making sure everyone was ready to listen. And then she said it. "I didn't come here for headlines. I came here for her." The room went silent. There was no need to ask who her was. Those who had followed the trial closely knew exactly who Kelly meant. The same woman who had handed Katy Perry the envelope.
Appreciate that.
The woman who vanished. The woman whose voice had become the ghost behind every revelation. Kelly had known her, and suddenly her presence made perfect, chilling sense. She described meeting the woman years ago, before the fame, before the chaos. They had met through mutual friends, both navigating the music industry, both women in an ecosystem that demanded silence. Kelly's voice cracked slightly as she recalled how her friend had confided in her, late one night after a charity event. She said she felt like she was in a cage, Kelly recalled. She said things were happening at those parties, things that kept her up at night. At the time, Kelly didn't know what to do with that confession. She offered support, told her friends she could always talk. But life happened. Careers took over. And then, she was gone. As Kelly spoke, the courtroom sat in total silence. Even the judge leaned forward slightly. Her tone wasn't theatrical, it was intimate. Every word had weight. This wasn't someone looking to insert themselves into a scandal. This was a woman haunted by something she hadn't stopped soon enough. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable testimony, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now let's get back to it, Kelly continued. She told the court that after hearing Katy Perry's testimony, she began to question everything. Old conversations, missed signs, warning texts she once dismissed as paranoia. Then 3 weeks ago, she found an old voice message on an archived backup phone. It was her friend. The timestamp was from just days before she vanished. She said, "If anything happens to me, tell them I tried. I gave it to the right person. She'll know what to do." The message ended abruptly. Kelly never heard from her again. The courtroom couldn't believe what they were hearing. A message from the woman herself, referencing the envelope Katy had brought forward, confirming she had intentionally passed it on to someone she trusted. This wasn't just emotional testimony. This was corroboration. Kelly's voice began to harden as she looked across the courtroom toward Diddy, though she never said his name. There are people in this room who've built their careers on fear. They've turned silence into a business. But I won't be silent anymore. Gasps rose from the gallery. The prosecution took notes furiously. The judge allowed the full transcript of the voicemail to be submitted into evidence. And the jury, already shaken from weeks of testimony, looked visibly rocked. And this was only the beginning of Kelly's statement. Kelly Clarkson's voice had shifted. In part one of her statement, she spoke with quiet pain. But now her words carried steel. This wasn't just about honoring a friend's final plea. This was about confronting a system that had swallowed too many voices whole. After the judge allowed her voicemail transcript into evidence, Kelly took a deep breath and began describing the days that followed her friend's disappearance. She told the courtroom that she hadn't realized at first how deep the danger ran. "I thought maybe she just needed to disappear for a while," she said, eyes locked on the jury. "We all get overwhelmed in this business, but when weeks turned into months and her number never worked again, something in my gut told me it wasn't by choice." She described trying to track her down, calling mutual friends, reaching out to industry contacts. Most gave vague answers. Some didn't reply at all. But one name came up over and over in hushed tones: Diddy. Kelly never had any direct connection to Sean Combs herself, but the pattern she began to see was unmistakable. Anyone who got too close to the truth seemed to vanish, either physically or professionally. Some lost their careers, others lost their minds, and a few, like her friend, simply vanished without explanation. She paused and then added something that made the courtroom hold its breath. "I started asking around quietly, nothing official, just back-channel conversations, and what I kept hearing was, 'Don't push, don't get involved, you've got kids, think of your career.'" The implication was clear. Even Kelly Clarkson, with all her fame, success, and respect, wasn't untouchable. That's when she said she realized how deep the fear ran, not just in the victims, but in the people who were too afraid to even ask what was going on. Kelly told the jury she couldn't sleep after that. "I'd lie awake thinking, what if she was reaching out to me for help? What if I could have done something back then to stop this from happening to anyone else?" That guilt, she explained, is what drove her to contact the prosecution. She didn't wait for a subpoena. She didn't wait for her name to be dragged into tabloids. She picked up the phone and asked, "Is there..."
Bro. Wow. She didn't even wait. She didn't even need the law's help. She helped the laws. Slam dunked this nigga Diddy for her friend. Ooh-wee, man.
Something I can do to help? The courtroom watched in awe. No cameras recorded this moment, but no one would forget it. The pop singer America once knew for her bright smile and empowering lyrics had become something else entirely. A witness, a truth teller, a protector of someone the world had tried to forget. Kelly continued by revealing a series of emails her friend had sent her years ago. Messages she had overlooked at the time, but now saw with terrifying clarity. One subject line read, "Things I can't say out loud." Another read, "If something happens, you'll know what it means." At the time, Kelly thought they were just emotional outbursts, but as she reread them now, knowing what she knew from Katie's testimony and the other witnesses, the truth was unavoidable. Her friend hadn't just been scared, she had been trapped. She had seen things that no one was supposed to see, and someone had made sure she could never say them again. The prosecution introduced the emails into evidence. They matched up in tone, timeline, and even terminology with the other materials presented during the trial, especially the USB drive Katie had provided and the notebook from the investigative journalist. They all pointed to one thing, a calculated effort to silence, discredit, or disappear anyone who dared to speak out. Then Kelly leaned forward, looked directly at the jury, and said the words that sealed the impact of her testimony. "She trusted me to carry her voice when she couldn't anymore. I don't want sympathy. I want accountability. I want you to understand that this isn't just a celebrity case. This is about how power is used to erase people, and how silence, whether out of fear or convenience, can make us all complicit." There were tears in the gallery. Even one juror dabbed at their eye. The judge called for a short break. As Kelly stood and walked back to her seat, the energy in the room had transformed once again. What had begun as a shocking celebrity appearance had now become a deeply human moment of truth. And still, everyone in that room knew it wasn't over, because Kelly Clarkson hadn't even delivered the secret. When the break ended and the courtroom doors reopened, the tension had...
Definitely, whoever knew should be arrested for conspiracy. Facts.
Hadn't softened, it had thickened. Kelly Clarkson's words were still echoing through every corner of the building. Her poise, her pain, her determination. It all stayed with the jury, with the press waiting outside, with the survivors watching from screens around the world. But the session was far from over. The prosecution still had more questions, and Kelly wasn't finished. As she took the stand again, the courtroom quieted to a level so still you could hear the shuffle of a single page. The prosecutor approached slowly and asked, "Ms. Clarkson, aside from the voicemail and the emails, is there anything else you received from your friend that connects her to the ongoing investigation?" Kelly nodded. "Yes, a letter she reached into a folder and held up a sealed envelope, slightly worn from years of storage. I've never opened it," she said. "She gave it to me during our last dinner together and told me, only open it when everything else starts making sense." Kelly's hand trembled slightly as she handed it to the court clerk. The judge requested that the envelope be opened under supervision, with a copy distributed to both legal teams. The room watched in absolute silence as the contents were revealed. A handwritten letter in blue ink, 2 pages long, and folded tightly. It was dated just 4 days before the woman's disappearance. Kelly was given a copy and asked to read the first paragraph aloud. She cleared her throat and began. "Kelly, if you're reading this, then it means the walls are cracking and the truth is finally pushing through. I'm scared, terrified actually, not for myself anymore, but for the people I've seen trapped in this nightmare. I've kept secrets and I've paid for it, but you always had a light. You were always honest, even when you didn't understand the darkness. That's why I chose you." Her voice wavered as she continued. "What you need to know is that this didn't start recently. It's been going on for years. There are places, rooms that no one talks about. Rooms where music stops and control begins. Rooms that erase people, and I've been in them. The courtroom sat frozen. You could see jurors gripping their pens, writing furiously, trying to absorb every word. One of them glanced at Diddy, whose expression had turned to stone. Kelly paused again. Her eyes were glassy now, but she stayed composed. She mentioned something in the next paragraph, Kelly said, about someone else, someone who helped her escape one night. The prosecution nodded. Please continue, Kelly read on. There was a night I wasn't supposed to leave. A man helped me. He worked for security, but he had a sister. He said he couldn't watch it happen again. He let me go, told me to run, but I couldn't leave without leaving something behind. So I gave what I had to someone who could protect it. If anything happens to me, it's because they found out. Suddenly the courtroom wasn't just listening. They were leaning in, completely consumed. The letter concluded with a list of initials, 6 sets, the same initials that had appeared in other witness testimonies and in the journalist's black notebook. This letter, untouched for years, now perfectly aligned with evidence presented throughout the trial. It tied together multiple timelines, people, and allegations. The judge ordered the letter submitted into evidence. The defense looked visibly shaken. Their objections were brief, weak, and immediately overruled. For the first time, it seemed their strategy had no ground left to stand on. But Kelly wasn't done. She looked at the judge and asked, "May I say something to the court?" He nodded. Kelly turned to the jury and said, "This is more than a letter. It's a woman's last breath on paper, and it matters because for every one of her, there are dozens more. We've all played our part in protecting the powerful, but today we choose which part we want to play next. Do we stay quiet, or do we make it mean something?" The room was silent. Not the...
I don't know if it's real or not, y'all. I'm just watching some shit about the shit. Like, I don't know. This is my first time seeing this shit. I'm like, what? Nigga, like, I don't know if it's real or not.
kind of silence that waits for the next voice. The kind that follows something unforgettable. The kind that lasts.
And though I don't know nothing about Kelly Clarkson, I just remember that's how she used to look. And I could have swore, I remember, I think she won, she might have won after Ruben Studdard, if I'm not mistaken.
No one said it out loud. Every person there felt it. Kelly Clarkson had just become more than a witness. She had become a reckoning. The gravity of Kelly Clarkson's letter still lingered as the next witness entered the courtroom. He was a former event coordinator, someone whose name had never made headlines, who had never appeared on red carpets or album credits, but he had been there, behind the scenes, at the parties, inside the rooms. He walked to the stand with a nervous energy, his hands visibly shaking. The judge reminded the gallery to remain silent. The prosecutor's voice was calm, almost gentle, as he began. "Can you tell the court how you first became involved with Sean Combs' events?" The man nodded. "I started in logistics, security, guest coordination, room assignments. At first, it was all pretty normal. Celebrity parties, NDAs, high security. But then, things changed." "What do you mean by changed?" "There were floors I wasn't allowed to access. I was told not to speak to certain guests. I was given lists of people to watch, not for their safety, but for their silence." He swallowed hard and looked down.
What?
"That's when I realized I wasn't managing events. I was managing fear." The courtroom listened as he described how the events evolved over the years. What started as lavish music industry celebrations began to resemble something more controlled, more calculated. At some point, the vibe shifted. It wasn't about music anymore. It was about power. People would arrive and hand over their phones. They'd sign things they didn't read. Some looked excited, some looked scared. Then he said something that shifted the entire room. There was a room labeled 7C. You didn't ask about it. You didn't go near it. You just made sure the right people went in, and the rest stayed out. Gasps echoed quietly through the gallery. That room had been referenced before, indirectly in the journalist's notebook, mentioned in the leaked messages from Diddy's inner circle. But this was the first time someone under oath had identified it by name, by location, and by use. "Who went into that room?" the prosecutor asked. "I don't know everyone," he admitted, "but I know who was escorted there most often. young women, usually alone, always quiet. The prosecutor handed him a copy of the guest logs recovered from one of Diddy's properties. Do any of these names look familiar? He pointed to several, one by one. I escorted these three personally. I remember because one of them asked if she could leave early. She said she didn't feel safe. What happened then? He paused, voice suddenly fragile. Security took her aside. I never saw her again. The gallery sat frozen. This wasn't just a testimony. It was a confirmation of every fear, every suspicion, every name that had appeared in court documents and survivor statements. Then came the moment that tied him directly to Kelly Clarkson's account. He was shown the initials from the letter, the same ones her friend had written down before disappearing. He recognized two of them immediately. She wrote these down? He asked quietly. Yes, the prosecutor replied. Why? What do they mean to you? He looked up, his eyes wide. Those are code names we used for clearing.
Man, that money brings power, man. Jay, come on, man. Bro, the same type of power that Diddy got, Jay got that same type of power, bro. Them niggas can move mountains, nigga, with that type of paper that they got, bro. They get niggas out of trouble. Look at 21 Savage. Look at Meek Mills. Jay-Z got them niggas out of mega trouble. Nigga, that nigga 21 Savage was finna get sent back to his country, nigga. That nigga Jay-Z went in there and talked to them people, nigga. Hey, that nigga 21 Savage still here, man. Them niggas got power, man. They are illuminated. This is the man. Them niggas Illuminati, man.
Tears. People with those initials had unrestricted access to 7C. They were the ones who controlled who went in and who didn't come out until told. The room broke into a low murmur. The judge had to call for order. The witness went on to describe one final, unforgettable night, the last event he ever worked. A night when he overheard someone say, "Make sure she doesn't leave with anything." He didn't know who she was, but a few days later, he saw Kelly Clarkson's friend's face on a missing persons post, one that disappeared from the internet hours after being posted. That was when he quit. That was when he realized he hadn't been managing high-profile events. He'd been managing secrets, dangerous ones. Before stepping down, he looked at the jury and said, "You think this is about one man? It's not. It's about what we all allowed to happen while we chase fame, money, and silence. This trial, it's the first time anyone's had the courage to stop pretending." And just like that, he was gone. Another witness, another thread pulled from a tapestry of corruption that had cloaked itself in glamour. Outside, the world watched with growing outrage. Inside, the court braced for what came next. Because even after everything that had been said, the most devastating truth had yet to be spoken. The prosecution resumed with a shift in tone, calmer, more surgical. They had moved beyond emotional testimony. Now they were focused on connection, on facts, on tightening the net. The next witness was a cybersecurity expert brought in to analyze devices, deleted files, and recovered data connected to the investigation. He was not a dramatic speaker, no shaking hands, no voice cracks. But what he brought into the courtroom made everyone sit up straighter. He began by explaining how a phone, once believed to be wiped clean, had been recovered from an ex-associate of Diddy. The data was corrupted, buried under layers of encrypted trash files.
We finna find out. We about to find
The courtroom had already seen its share of shocks, tears, whistleblowers, secret drives, hidden recordings. But no one was prepared for the quiet yet commanding entrance of Gwen Stefani. No cameras were allowed, but every person in that room would remember the moment she walked in, escorted by federal marshals, carrying something tightly wrapped in black velvet. At first, people thought it was a mistake. Gwen Stefani, the singer, the fashion icon, what did she have to do with the Diddy trial? But those whispers fell silent the moment the judge looked up, blinked twice, and nodded to the bailiff. The clerk stood and announced, "The court recognizes witness..."
Man, this nigga just making up lies. See, this why that nigga Diddy gonna get slam dunked, though. This nigga just making up lies, bro. Just making up motherfucking lies about the man. Now, that shit is crazy work, man. How you gonna do Diddy like that, man? At least tell the truth on the nigga, goddamn. Like, hold on, let me see something. No, that shit, these niggas, man, that was foul in a motherfucker. That was very, very foul, bro. Why would you do that? Like, man, you motherfuckers with that bullshit. Motherfuckers trying to get in bad, but then again, man, them people watch this shit, dog. Motherfuckers wrong for that shit. If you know that shit ain't true, nigga, why would you do that? Like, that shit ain't fair, fool. That shit is not fair.
It's all about alleged victim Jane's testimony today in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Back on the stand, she testified about voyeuristic sex and drugs. Audio recordings were played, texts were read. What were the main points of her testimony, though? How does it potentially fit into the prosecution's case? And how was the jury reacting to her? Long Crimes in Court reporter Elizabeth Milner is back with us to break it all down.
I wanted to see something because I seen that they said that nigga Diddy was mean mugging the witnesses and shit. That's what I want to see. They say P. Diddy will be able to lock up life and say, Drew, the pill taking the rappers. P. Diddy exes break down crime while testifying at the freak off. Yeah, we're going to jump into this one right here.
Elizabeth, it is good to see you. We already have questions coming in directly for you, so let's get right into it, because I know always my time with you is limited. We have a question from Danny, and this is the central question. This is the central question, because I asked yesterday, it was more introductory. She seemed to talk about the love that she had in this relationship with Sean Combs, how she met him in 2020, the relationship began in 2021, started to introduce her into these voyeuristic sexual episodes. I wasn't hearing force, fraud, coercion for sex trafficking, right? And using those methods to induce somebody into commercial sex acts. So the question now is, from Danny, this is a question for Elizabeth, did Jane testify to any coercion she faced from Diddy? The floor is yours, Elizabeth.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer that. I feel like we're still kind of getting into the depths of more of her direct testimony, whereas right away with Cassie, for example, it was you could kind of make the dots and connect the dots. Sorry, I cannot speak today. You can connect the dots a little bit easier with Cassie's testimony. For example, you have the Intercontinental Hotel incident, the surveillance video. But as far as just coercion specifically to Jane, it's kind of hard to really tell at this point. There were times while she was on the witness stand today, for example, that she would just break down into a lot of tears to the point that AUSA Maureen Comey was like, do you need to take a break? Are you?
I say yes. I'm agreeing with you. What's your name, guy? Skylar. I'm definitely agreeing with you. But you can't, man, listen, the parties, all that's cool, fool. The freaky shit, that's cool for you. If that's what you like, that's cool. That's lit. Well, it ain't legal to buy prostitutes, but hey, if you don't, I guess if you don't tell, they won't tell. But you can't drug the people, though. You can't drug them, fool. You just can't do that, dog. You can't drug people and force them into being freaky if they not freaky. You can't just make a motherfucker be freaky, Didi. You know, you can't just spike their water or spike their alcohol. You can't do that, man. That's wrong.
You okay? Do you want to keep going? And Jane just continued to push through, but she got really emotional at points when it came to just how long that these freak-offs would last, to the point where she would be so tired that she would request or kind of give a look to her partner, as she calls him, but that look was to Diddy.
Salute to my nigga LX, man. Make sure y'all go subscribe to LX, too.
Or to Puffy or Sean Combs, as she also calls him on the witness stand, but she was kind of explaining that there were times where she'd be really exhausted from a freak off or a hotel night or a debauchery night, whatever they call it, and then Diddy would want more escorts to come. So when they were done with one escort, that escort would leave, then another escort would come, that escort would leave, then another escort would come into the hotel room, and then that escort would leave. And so she did have points today where it was very emotional, but as far as force, fraud, and coercion, it's kind of hard to tell, mainly because Jane, a lot of the times, was like, I did it to please him. I did it to make him happy. I knew these were things that turned him on, and I just wanted to make sure that he was happy. I would give him massages. I would watch or put on his favorite show. I would cook for him after these hotel nights or freak-off sessions. And so it's a pretty gray area right now, but I think that during the...
Hey, man. Hey, Coochie Coo. Do you realize that nigga what was in that motherfucking water, nigga, that was fucking horse tranquilizer, my nigga. Shit that they use to control wild horses. Do you know how many pounds a horse weigh? I'm from Texas. Do you know how many pounds a horse weigh? Do you know how many pounds the average human weigh? It's gonna knock you out, bro. What I'm trying to tell you is you're not gonna remember what even fucking went on. You're not.
The direct, which is going to continue until 5 p.m. today, that somewhere, some point, maybe the dots will be connected a little bit more than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag, and I'm going to talk about it later. You know, there were aspects of it where she talks about, you know, throwing up and then being forced to engage in these sex acts, her crying, him being dismissive. Then there's problems, like she still wanted to be in his arms. She's calling him sweet, that it seems like he didn't force her to have sex with one.
That nigga also, one of Diddy pet names for his women to call him was Ernie. I wonder why that nigga chose the name Ernie. You know how they said Pop Pop, but then the other girl said she called him Ernie. He want to be called Ernie. What the fuck is wrong with
sex worker that was, you know, sweating. But I think a lot of it goes to transporting her and sex workers for the purpose of sex work. So that's, you know, I think count 5 in the indictment, transportation to engage in prostitution. Here's a great question. After yesterday, when Diddy got in trouble for allegedly nodding at the jury during cross-examination of a witness, we got a question here from Shady Nasty. What is Diddy's demeanor like in court today listening to Jane testify?
Well, Diddy at the defense table is doing kind of what he normally does, minus kind of the nodding along with the testimony and things of that sort. So for the most part, I do see him at times jotting notes down, passing them off to his attorneys. During sometimes the sidebars, I see him kind of turn around, look at his family members, for example, seeing his mom inside the courtroom and waving hello to her. But as far as just giving...
Remember, these women are under Jane Doe's. So... I seen a lady, I forget what her name is. She be in the courtrooms. I mean, she like a blogger that be in the courtrooms, a black lady. And they were saying who it was in her chair yesterday, and she was blocking them. I guess because it's some shit. I guess people watching to see if you tell them Jane Doe's names or something in the chat or something, like dox them or something. The feds can get you in trouble for that shit. So she kept blocking their asses. We know who it is. We know who Jane over them for 3 years. I'm like, man, what's going on? A lot of people saying it was 50 Cent baby mama. See, they being secretive about a lot of shit.
Looks to the jurors specifically and nodding along. I haven't seen much of that today. And so it might have resonated what the judge said to Diddy yesterday, right before we had went to the lunch break, just yesterday around the same time. And so as far as what we're seeing, it's not as intense as it was yesterday. But I think after the judge's words to him, I think he realized, okay, I got to chill out on doing the nodding.
So, you know, he's not looking at the jurors, because we got a question here from RSS. He's not nodding at the jurors. Is he looking at the jurors? Are the jurors looking at him? Because this is important testimony. I guess the question is, what are the jurors doing when they're listening to the testimony of Jane?
Yeah, so from what I see, and I did try to get a better seat for you guys today so I could kind of really see more of like the second row, the third row. I can't see the first row as much as I normally could from where I normally sit. But as far as what I did see from the jurors today, I did see them either looking directly at Jane while she's testifying, especially during those moments where she got super emotional and she began crying. And then I also saw them looking at AUSA Maureen Comey, too, while she was kind of doing her lines of questioning. And so there were times where you could see jurors looking at Maureen Comey, then looking at Jane on the witness stand, or they're just laser focused on Jane, or some of them I've seen are just jotting down a bunch of notes. I have seen a lot of notes because there were exhibits that were...
That's the thing that gets me. I know y'all seeing like Young Thug walked and shit, but that wasn't the feds though. Young Thug was under a gang RICO, bro, like a state gang RICO. It wasn't federal, bro. If that was federal, Lil Woody wouldn't be out here right now, y'all. I'm telling y'all, because Lil Woody was the star witness, and he told everything on camera in that interrogation room, but when he got on the stand, he didn't tell him nothing. He acted stupid, act like he didn't want to be there, acting dumb. You do that on this federal stand and play them games on this stand, nigga, they gonna lock your bitch ass right back up, nigga. You know?
Were shown, and a lot of exhibits that were shown, unfortunately, during...
I just believe that the feds got this nigga for some reason. Because remember, they raided this house. They didn't take him to jail right then. They raided this house and looked through shit and talked to people. Then they came back and raided that bitch again and picked him up.
Jane's testimony, we in the gallery and even those in the overflow room cannot see it, but we're hearing a lot of descriptions of them. For example, the many lines of escorts and the escorts photographs that the jurors saw today and that Jane saw today too.
You gotta understand, wouldn't you want to cover up your career? If you was sneaking around doing some dumbass shit with this nigga, you gonna want to cover up your shit too, because you fucking with Diddy doing this shit can stop deals that you getting, other marketing deals. You know what I'm saying? They gonna be like, nah, man, I don't think it's be a good idea that our lenders lend you the funds for your business because you were dealing with Diddy and he's a, you know what? You know what I'm saying?
But from what I could see of them, really it seems like they're paying very close attention. I didn't see any outwardly kind of facial expressions as far as maybe being confused or anything like that. Really, they're just kind of like, I really kind of want to know myself what's going on in their minds sometimes, because sometimes they just have a very stone cold face kind of going on while they're listening to a lot of graphic testimony.
By the way, did you hear that recording that was played in court today regarding, I think you could hear Combs, Jane, and this guy named Don, right? What was that recording?
Definitely, Skyler.
Yes, well, let me get to that part of my notes. Because
well, I'll tell you what. As you get to your notes, I will give you another good question for you. This is from I Do Voodoo 1. Elizabeth, I forgot what skincare you use. What shorthand program are you using? You rock. So if you want to answer that, or you want to answer the more serious question about the recording as you get to your notes.
I mean, I can always answer about skincare. It's toner, it's retinol, it's serum, it's face mask, it's Vaseline lip moisturizer, and it's a lot of water. So
and
that's
it's working.
The easy question.
And it's
I
working.
love answering those types of questions. Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, when that question was posed to me yesterday, I was kind of like, is it because my skincare looks good, or is it because I'm sweating out here because it's so hot? But we're okay. And I found that point in my notes, so I can tell you guys all about what we did here as far as this particular iPhone recording. And so it was a conversation that was recorded by, I believe it was Diddy recording this on an iPhone, because that's kind of what they did during these hotel sessions and these hotel nights. And so one of the conversations was recorded about Jane wanting the escorts to wear a condom. And so when we first hear the exhibit, because again, we can't see it, but we can hear this audio, the jurors can see this, so you can hear voices. It's all jumbled up. I'm kind of like, what is this that we're hearing? And Jane said it was her.
That's sick as fuck too, fool. To be making your girl do that shit in raw dog, and she was catching all these diseases and shit, she said. Nah, that's raw as fuck, fool. That's like sinister dirtiness, fool. Nah, that's your girl. You gonna want to have sex with her too? You just letting these niggas, these prostitutes. We talking about prostitutes have sex with your girl with no condom. Come on, Diddy.
Herself on this recording, Dawn, and Diddy on this recording. And she said during this video, she was asking Dawn to put on a condom. And Diddy said, what are you doing? What do you want? And so then Maureen Comey replays it again, and she kind of takes it piece by piece as far as what was being said. So Jane said, I think they're in the chair, and she was referring to as condoms. And then Diddy said something along the lines of, you were just taking that D if you don't touch yourself right now. And then Jane was explaining, I understand that
nigga, that is fucking disgusting on the lowest level of lowest, fool. Like, and I bet you this nigga probably is one of the most cleanest bitch ass niggas. Probably want his nails cut every day and all type of pretty boy ass shit. But you let your girl just be dirty. Like, you just wanted to just... But you gonna be dirty too, because she representing you, cuz. That's Kyle, man.
My request was going to be denied. And then Maureen Comey asked, well, why did you need permission from Mr. Combs for an escort to have sex with your body? And then Jane's getting pretty emotional here. And then Jane herself responded, I don't know, I'm still trying to process everything. And then there was an objection from the defense. They had a sidebar. And then when they came back from this sidebar, Maureen Comey asked again, why didn't why didn't you insist that Dawn wear a condom? And Jane responded, I didn't want to disappoint my lover. He wouldn't be in a good mood or satisfied with the night if she were to continue asking this. And she said for the most part, Diddy preferred for the escorts to not be wearing rubbers or condoms when they're having sex with her. She said that he doesn't like seeing these on the escort's body. And so it was just an interesting kind of recording to kind of hear out in court. At first I was like, what are these words? Like, I really couldn't comprehend it, but
the reason why I don't want to win is because I don't like seeing them. Bitch, what you looking for? See, that's the problem. Your bitch ass, your looking ass. You see what your looking ass got your ass? Wanting to look at everything and watch everything and create scenes, nigga. Look where your ass at now, nigga. Your looking ass.
But as they broke it down, I was kind of like, oh, okay, now I can see where they're kind of going with this a little bit.
So, got a great compliment just came in from Donnie ZTV. Thank you so much for this super chat comment. Jesse, you and Elizabeth rocked, so thank you so much. Very kind of you to say. Okay, we did have a question here from Shop Girl, and I don't know if you were in court for this. We saw reporting about it. What was the extent of Diddy's aggravation when he was obviously angry speaking to his attorneys? There was something reported about that. I think the jury had been excused maybe on a break, and he was quite animated speaking with his attorneys. Did you see anything like that?
I didn't see anything like that. It might have been a point where I stepped out to use the restroom, but I mean, wow, I'm just hearing this for the first time, so I didn't see it in person. So unfortunately, I can't answer too much of your question. I think I might have just gone off to the restroom, I guess, when that moment might have happened.
So Elizabeth, would you agree with me and pick out the points? Do you feel that from today's testimony and a little bit from yesterday, they are solidifying transportation to engage in prostitution, where Diddy is accused of transporting sex workers and alleged victims for the purposes of prostitution, for the purposes of sex work? You don't need force, fraud, or coercion necessarily. It's more of a straightforward charge. Were there some highlights today that you say they got it in the bag for that?
I think so. For example, when we were seeing just the number of escort exhibits, we saw a man named Don. He was an escort that Jane and Diddy had used. And the last time she saw Don, this particular escort, I thought it was interesting. The last time that she had sex with him, and during these hotel nights, even though sometimes they didn't always happen in hotels, the last time was August of 2024. So like just last month, not last month, oh my goodness, last year, but a month before Diddy was arrested. Then there was an exhibit shown to the jury and to Jane. It was called the escort.
How the fuck Diddy done had sex with this bitch last year? Last month, nigga. I know this nigga was locked up. I'm like, God damn.
And that Paul was used from 2021 until July of 2024. Jane thought that he was a personal trainer because he actually trained Diddy, but he also worked for Cowboys for Angels. But I think
Remember I told y'all that imagine you doing something different. You don't use the prostitutes this time. You use your personal trainer. But what the fuck are you doing? See, this goes to show you that Diddy is weird. What the fuck are you doing looking at these men? This your personal trainer. You choose him to have sex with her. You break up with Cassie, he go scoop her up, the personal trainer. And you was still paying the nigga, Diddy. I'm talking about the personal trainer shit. It's crazy work, fool.
The sticking point here is that she saw him in Los Angeles. She saw him in Miami. She saw him in Turks and Caicos. There was Leo, the escort, or also referred to as the Italian. She met him in 2022 on her birthday. The last time she saw him was in 2023, and that they would use him every so often, but she saw him in Los Angeles. There was an unnamed escort that she was shown an exhibit of, met him in 2021, and this was the escort that she said that she was repulsed by him, that he was super sweaty, he had smelled, she was hesitant with him, and that he was used in just different places too. So I think if anything, that the prosecution does have that working for them. I think it is still kind of up in the air as far as count 4 goes when it pertains to sex trafficking with Jane's specific count. But as far as just transportation to engage in prostitution, I think Maureen Comey is really kind of making great points here and there where it's like, well, where did you see this individual? Was it in Miami? Was it in Vegas? Was it in Los Angeles? And even for Dawn, for example, one of the first escorts that that Jane had booked on her own, she was explaining that he was someone that they always flew out from Atlanta to wherever they were, either it be in Los Angeles or other places, and that they would be arranged, the travel as far as Dawn was concerned, would either be arranged by Jane herself, but she would be reimbursed by Diddy, or it'd be by Diddy's travel agent who would get everything going as far as making the flights for him and then flying him out from where his home was in Atlanta, Georgia, over to wherever Diddy and Jane were.
Just to clarify here, Elizabeth, what are the points you think the defense is going to jump on? And when I say that is, I'm reading the transcript, and there's certain parts of her testimony that I don't think are great for the prosecution. You know, I mentioned it before, but the idea of there was this sweaty individual, and it doesn't seem, unless I'm wrong, Combs forced her to actually continue sexual relations with him, that she still talks like a loving relationship with Sean Combs, you know, that she wanted to be in his arms. She just wanted to be with him. She loved him. I mean, she was dating him up until his arrest in 2024, that she was the one who was writing sexually explicit messages to these sex workers, seemingly, you know, she says it was at Sean Combs' request. But are there certain avenues, certain points in her testimony today where you feel the defense is going to focus on, or you feel there are openings for the defense to exploit?
I think the defense is definitely going to ask Jane how she feels about Diddy today as far as whether or not she still has feelings for him, because I think there are times during her direct testimony where you can kind of feel like she is a little apprehensive. I don't know if it's about testifying in general or that she may have kind of conflicted feelings where she was seeing this person up until September of 2024. They had a long relationship beginning all the way in 2021, not as long as Cassie and Diddy were together as far as that 11-year on and off period, but I think they're going to ask her, what are your thoughts on Diddy? Do you still love him? I think they're also going to ask her, you initiated some of these hotel nights. You were the one sending these messages to these entertainment or pornography stars, and you were the one making sure that you were bringing them to wherever you were. Were you a willing participant? Did you say no, or are you just saying that because the government called you? I feel like they're really going to poke holes in her story, possibly use her text messages against her as they've done kind of with other witnesses, and possibly ask her, well, you were kind of getting something out of this, and that was her rent being paid for. Again, that rent being $10,000 a month, which I did the math wrong yesterday. I said it was 8 times more than my rent. It's 5 times more than my rent, but still, that's a lot of money to pay for rent for somebody else. But as far as just where the defense is going to poke holes, I think they kind of have a lot possibly working for them. I think one interesting thing, Jesse, is that there was a moment yesterday where the judge was asking, can everyone stay a little bit later? Because they know that Jane has to get off the stand by Thursday because she has to make a flight. But Alexandra Shapiro stood up and was like, I can't stay late. And she was talking about it yesterday. She's like, I can't stay late today because I have this other event. But I really want to stay here for all of Jane's testimony because we believe she's one of the most important witnesses in the case. So I think that the defense knows just how important Jane's testimony is. But I think they definitely kind of have a lot working for them when they do eventually get to cross-examining her.
And by the way, if anybody has any questions for Elizabeth as we have our time with her, please submit them right now. Do you know if who's there on Diddy's side today? Is his family there?
Yeah, so we are seeing a lot of family members today. So, for example, we're seeing his sons, including, I almost said Tristan, but it's Justin and Christian. I'm sorry, everyone. I know today is Friday, and I'm feeling the Friday vibes. But also, Janice Combs was inside that courtroom today, too. His sister Keisha made an appearance today in court. She's been in there. Diddy's PR rep is in there. I think not on Diddy's side or anything, but I think notably someone in the courtroom today was Doug Wigder, who is Cassie's attorney. But as far as those who are who are on Diddy's side today, one of his really good friends and music producer, Charlucci, was there, and his youngest daughter's mother was in there in that courtroom too. So he has a lot of support kind of working on his side today, a little bit more support than maybe we've seen for other days. But as far as just his daughters, we haven't seen them since week 1 of trial. So I think that's something kind of interesting. But he does still have his support system there, including probably one of his favorite people, his sons and his mother there, and his sister too.
There's always a lot of conversation about what happened yesterday and what exactly he was doing with respect to the jury. And, the question is if he's nodding towards them This is a guy who has been accused for the last 3-4 weeks of intimidating people, witnesses, alleged victims, assistants. So was he potentially trying to intimidate the jury? It also could be maybe he was feeling the high of a successful cross-examination of a key witness, Brianna Bongolan, which we could talk about as well. But we get this question that came in from Ashley Glass. It's for you. If yesterday he was nodding at the jury, isn't that suspicious to him getting to a juror? Could they be compromised by Diddy? So I guess the question is there anything that you're observing here, Elizabeth, that would suggest two questions? Anything that looks like the jury might be siding with the defense, whether it's any kind of cross-examination that you've seen so far? Are they nodding? Are they looking? Are they responding positively to the defense? And number two, do they look like they're affected by Diddy's presence or behavior in that courtroom?
Well, I don't know if they're necessarily affected by his behavior, because I thought after yesterday, after the judge kind of admonishing Diddy, I thought maybe there would be kind of a change in maybe facial expressions as far as the jurors not kind of looking his way. But I think because of the way the layout of the courtroom is, you can't help but kind of look over in that way or anything like that. But as far as just kind of him looking at the jurors, and let me just say, he doesn't just look at the jurors, he looks at everybody in the gallery too. There are moments where even us on the press side, he does make eye contact with us. And myself, who's not a juror on this case, I myself find that kind of intimidating. So I can only imagine kind of how the jurors are feeling when they're getting kind of looks from the defendant himself. And I'm also wondering, as far as just him nodding along, it was something, again, that he was doing, I think, a little bit longer than when the judge kind of pointed it out. He did this for other witnesses while they were on the witness stand too. But taking back to the point of whether or not the jurors that I could see necessarily agreeing with the defense, or maybe that it got to them, I'm not sure. I remember, I think it was Daniel Phillip who was testifying, or it might have been the Punisher who was testifying, where I did see one juror kind of nodding along to, and I believe the attorney who cross-examined both of those men was Xavier Donaldson, kind of nodding along to his line of cross-examination. But even as far as today goes, which we haven't gotten to the cross, it's still under the direct, so the prosecution's still asking those questions. I haven't seen much of a reaction from them, but they're really kind of hard to read sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, are they really interested? Sometimes I'm like, are they jotting notes down pertaining to testimony? Are they possibly writing their own grocery list down? Because when you're inside that courtroom for hours on end listening to this really graphic stuff, sometimes I'm wondering, like, are they really paying attention? But from what I can see, and from what the judge has even kind of complimented on, is it seems that everyone is paying attention to what's going on inside the courtroom.
Got one more question for you. This is from Jonathan Berry. Who is coming up after Jane, Elizabeth?
I do not know who's coming up after Jane. I'm very curious to see. I think a lot of us are possibly wanting to hear from somebody that we've been hearing a lot about, and that being KK or Christina Koram. But the government hasn't given any indication if she'll take the stand, and if she does take the stand, when that'll be. But I do think what the government is gearing up for is just their summary witness to eventually take the stand, and that person's going to really kind of wrap up everything together, probably show some demonstrative exhibits as far as just these different charts and how the escorts were flown out on certain days and all of that stuff. So I think for sure we're getting kind of possibly, maybe, depending on how you look at it, close to the end of the government's case, but I don't want to put words in their mouth just in case we see maybe 20 more witnesses down the line, and I don't want y'all to get mad at me when that happens.
No one will ever get mad at you. Don't you know that by now, Elizabeth? Elizabeth, thank you so much. Great reporting as always. Lot to break down here. We're going to take your questions. I'll allow Elizabeth to jump back into the courtroom. Okay.
Day 17 of the Diddy trial started like any other. Tight security, no cameras allowed, and a press gallery straining to capture every detail with words instead of lenses. But no one, not even the most seasoned court reporter, was prepared for what Paris Jackson carried in her hands. A sealed white envelope, no logo, no label, just aged paper, thick and quietly trembling between her fingers. As she rose from the second row, the court clerk whispered something to the judge. A brief nod followed. Then the room stilled as Paris made her way toward the front, her expression calm, yet almost ghostly. She didn't walk like someone seeking attention. She walked like someone carrying a burden. When she reached the witness stand, her voice was barely above a whisper, but every ear in the room caught her words. "It's from my father," she said, holding out the envelope. "And it's about him." The judge paused. Even he looked unsettled. This trial had already seen celebrity confessions, secret audio clips, and emotional breakdowns. But this was different. This wasn't testimony. This was history knocking on the courtroom door. The judge accepted the envelope, slowly opened it. Inside, a single-page handwritten letter. Signed, Michael Jackson. A murmur rippled across the room. Michael's name wasn't just legendary. It was sacred, controversial, and still haunted by mystery. And now, posthumously, his voice was being brought into a courtroom where Sean Diddy Combs sat just 10 feet away. Paris sat down. She didn't say anything else. She didn't have to. The judge cleared his throat. He began to read. The first line hit like a thunderclap. "There are men in this business who smile in your face and steal your soul in silence." Somewhere in the back, a pen dropped. No one moved to pick it up. "I've met them. I've watched them. And if my daughter ever crosses paths with Sean Combs, I pray she remembers this." Diddy didn't move. But his lawyers were visibly shifting now, whispering among themselves. The courtroom was no longer just a space for law. It was a stage for legacy, a battleground for truth buried in time. Michael Jackson, gone for over a decade, had just stepped into the trial. And Paris Jackson, with shaking hands and a steel backbone, was the one who brought him there. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon. That way you'll never miss any new coming videos like this. Now, let's get back to it. Paris hadn't planned to speak that day. She hadn't even planned to show up. But the night before, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding with a pressure she couldn't name. And then she remembered it. The letter. Not a document, not a headline, not a memory told by someone else. A letter, written by her father, folded neatly, hidden in a fireproof box stored inside a safety deposit vault she rarely touched. It wasn't labeled for court. It wasn't meant for anyone but her. She'd read it before, years ago, when she was still a teenager, grieving, confused, looking for clues to who her father really was. The letter didn't make sense back then, just vague warnings, names she didn't recognize, sentences that felt more like riddles than advice. But now, after everything that had come out in court about Diddy, about manipulation, control, power games, it all snapped into focus like a puzzle finally clicking together. That morning, she took a flight without telling anyone. She walked into the courtroom quietly, head down, letter in hand. And when she took the stand, the world changed. Because her father's words weren't just poetic, they were prophetic. As she sat in the witness chair, the letter still fresh in the judge's hands, Paris began to speak. Not with rage, not with tears, but with the eerie calm of someone delivering truth that had waited too long to be heard. She described her childhood in whispers, memories of walking past closed-door meetings, hearing her father's voice raise only when certain names were mentioned. Diddy was one of them. Always Diddy. He was cautious around very few people, she said, eyes fixed ahead. But with Diddy, it was different. It wasn't caution, it was fear. The courtroom hung on every word. She recalled a moment when she was 12, sitting in the back seat of their SUV, when her father told her, "Some people build empires with music. Others build it by feeding off people like me." She didn't understand it then. Now she did. And then she spoke about the letter. "He wrote it to me, not to the world, not to the public, but to his daughter," she said, her voice growing firmer. "He didn't name many names in writing, but he named him." She paused, looked straight at the defense table. "I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be part of this. But when I saw what he did to Zendaya, I couldn't ignore it anymore." She folded her hands and whispered, "My father saw it coming." And in that moment, the courtroom was no longer just about charges or legal strategy. It was about blood, about legacy, about a warning written by a father who knew he wouldn't live long enough to protect his daughter forever. But he tried anyway. And now his voice, written in ink, was louder than ever. Years before Paris ever walked into a courtroom, before the scandals, the headlines, and the trials, her father had already seen the shadows. Michael Jackson was many things to the world, an icon, a mystery, a legend. But to Paris, he was simply Dad, a protector, a man who could sense danger in ways she didn't yet understand. And when it came to the industry, he trusted very few. Diddy was never just another name to him. Paris remembered it vividly. It was a quiet evening in Neverland Ranch. They were in his study, where books lined the walls and jazz hummed softly in the background. Michael had a folder on his lap, photos and documents tucked inside. She had asked who they were about. He looked at her, serious in a way that stripped away all the softness she knew. Some people, Paris, he said, they don't want your light. They want to drain it. And when you're empty, they move on to the next. She was just a child. She didn't know he was teaching her how to survive. Years later, after his death, that same folder found its way into her hands. Legal papers, notes, scribbled warnings, and one page written more carefully than the rest. The one she brought to court. The letter. In it, Michael described a series of encounters. Business proposals that felt more like traps, invitations that came with too many strings, smiles that masked ambition. He named names, carefully but clearly, and one sentence hit Paris the hardest. Sean Combs is not what he appears. He doesn't build, he extracts. At the time, Paris didn't know what it meant, but sitting in that courtroom, watching Diddy avoid her eyes as the letter was read aloud, she finally understood. He didn't see her as a person, he saw her as legacy, as leverage, as another name to collect. And it wasn't just about her. It was a pattern. Zendaya's story was different, but the rhythm was the same. Praise, control, silence. The judge asked her one question that morning. Do you believe this letter is relevant to the case? Paris didn't flinch. It's not just relevant, she said. It's the blueprint. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. The prosecution leaned forward. The defense shifted in their seats. Even the jury looked visibly rattled. And Diddy, he still hadn't spoken, but his posture had changed, less defiant, more calculating, like a man who suddenly realized a ghost had entered the room. Because this wasn't just Paris speaking anymore. It was Michael. Through her, through time, through truth. And no amount of silence could stop what had already been said. When Paris finished speaking, there was a stillness that didn't break for several full seconds. Not a whisper, not a shuffle of paper. Just the weight of a name, Michael Jackson, hovering over the courtroom like a shadow too large to ignore. Then the judge did something unusual. He asked for the letter to be read again, this time aloud, word for word. The courtroom clerk stood, unfolding the aged paper with careful hands. And then came his voice, steady, emotionless. But the words needed no performance. They carried their own thunder. To my daughter, you will grow up in a world that will try to turn you into something you're not. They'll say they love your light, but they'll put a price on it the moment you shine too bright. Be careful who calls you gifted. Some see your gift as theirs to control. Paris's eyes glistened. There are men who wear success like armor, but inside they're empty. Sean Combs is one of them. I've seen what he does. He lifts people to clip their wings, and when they fall, he disappears. No one breathed. One day you'll be strong enough to see through them, but until then, trust your heart. And if you ever feel like someone's taking your voice, that's when you fight. Signed, Dad. It wasn't just a letter. It was a warning from the grave, a lifeline thrown across time, and the courtroom felt it. Paris sat motionless, staring at the letter as if she could still hear his voice in the room. But not everyone was quiet. Diddy suddenly leaned forward, whispered something to his attorney. For the first time since the trial began, his calm exterior cracked. Just slightly, not enough for headlines, but enough for the jury to notice. His attorney stood up, objected to the letter's emotional weight, claimed it was hearsay, irrelevant, personal family lore. But the prosecution didn't miss a beat. It's not just personal, they argued. It's predictive and accurate. They referenced Zendaya's testimony, the manipulation, The control, the same language, the same tactics. Echoes of what Michael described, years before any of it came to light. And then the judge ruled, the letter stays in evidence. You could almost hear the defense team's strategy collapse in real time. Because it was no longer just one woman's word against Diddy. It was a pattern drawn from the words of a man the world once called paranoid, but who now looked prophetic. Paris didn't speak again that day. She didn't need to. She had delivered the message. And now the courtroom wasn't just trying Diddy's actions. It was measuring them against the warnings of a father who saw the storm coming long before the thunder ever rolled in. The air in the courtroom was starting to feel different now. Not just tense, but heavy, like everyone inside knew they were part of something bigger than just one trial. You could see it on the faces of the jurors, in the way the court reporters typed slower, in the silence that lingered just a little longer between each objection. Paris Jackson had placed her father's words into the record, and those words weren't leaving. Now it was Diddy's legal team's turn to respond. The lead defense attorney stood slowly, walked toward the center of the room, and cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, we are not here to put Michael Jackson's ghost on trial. It was a calculated move, dismissive, sharp, meant to undercut the moment. But it didn't land. Not fully, because no one had forgotten the letter, and no one could unhear the words. He lifts people to clip their wings. The attorney shifted tactics. He pulled out photos, press events, music awards, public appearances of Diddy and Michael smiling together. If Mr. Jackson truly feared my client, he said, holding up one glossy image, why did he continue to appear in public with him? Paris didn't flinch. She leaned into the microphone. Because he knew the cost of saying no to powerful people. You could hear the ripple. The courtroom reacted not with noise, but with stillness. The kind of silence that says, we believe her. The defense tried again, this time questioning the letter itself. Was it ever authenticated before this trial? Was it notarized? Was it written with legal intent? Paris calmly replied, it wasn't written for a courtroom. It was written for me. And then she added, not everything true needs to be notarized. Some truths are so personal, you don't share them until you have no other choice. The judge allowed the exchange. No one objected, but then came the moment no one expected. The prosecution played a clip, not from Paris and not from this trial, but an old grainy video of Michael himself. A rarely seen interview, unearthed from deep in the archives. In it, Michael speaks with guarded urgency. I've seen people rise by stepping on others, he says. There are some in this business who don't just chase success, they erase others to get it. I won't name them, but I've warned those close to me. It wasn't direct, but the implication following the letter was thunderous. Diddy sat still, his jaw set, but his posture told a different story now. He wasn't relaxed. He wasn't in control. He looked like a man being haunted, because this wasn't just testimony anymore. It was a chorus. Zendaya's voice, Paris's voice, Michael's words from the past, layer after layer, revealing a picture no one could deny. The courtroom wasn't just hearing the truth, it was feeling it. The courtroom doors were still closed to cameras, but outside, the story was already spilling into the world like a dam breaking. Paris Jackson, Michael Jackson's letter, a prophetic warning about Sean Diddy Combs. The media didn't have footage, but they didn't need it. Word had already traveled like wildfire, through live tweets from court reporters, whispering blogs, and news anchors desperate to decode every sentence. He lifts people to clip their wings. That line had become a storm. But inside the courtroom, the storm hadn't passed. It was only beginning, because now the cross-examination had begun. The defense attorney adjusted his tie, stepped forward, and tried to bring the focus back to something they could control. Paris's credibility. You said your father feared Mr. Combs, he started, yet there's no public record, no prior testimony, no statement from Mibbitt letter, conveniently presented mid-trial as evidence of that fear? Paris didn't blink. Are we now to pretend fear always shows up in headlines? She replied. A pause. The defense moved on, trying a new angle. Ms. Jackson, how do we know this letter wasn't influenced, if not written, by someone else? You were young. You were grieving. Is it possible you're reading too much into this? Paris looked at the jury, not the attorney, not the judge, the people who would decide what truth looked like. I'm not here to guess, she said. I'm here because I remember how my father looked when Diddy's name came up. I'm here because he didn't need to shout to warn me. He whispered, and I listened. But the defense wasn't finished. They pulled out a surprise, an old event photo of Paris and Diddy taken at an awards show years ago. She's smiling. He's smiling. Is this the man your father warned you about? The attorney asked, his voice loud and theatrical. Because this doesn't look like fear.